Bam! MC is in the house. What's going on, folks? My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chim, and welcome to the Warrior Stream. I am here every Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time, usually here for about an hour, talking about different topics. All relevant links you could find in the description. Today, I think I added, well, if it's successfully happening, I added my Twitter feed also to this broadcast. So it should be on YouTube, a couple of pages on Facebook, and now Twitter. I'm always looking to add more platforms to the broadcast because it just makes it a hell of a lot easier logistically, so I don't have to post these things when that happens. So let's see what's going on. We have Judge Cohen. What's going on, brother man? Joe Rotundo, what's up? Corey, what's going on, my man? Angel Caceres in the house. What's going on, brother man? Good to see you. Jan Saxa, good to see you. Happy Wednesday to you, aka Woden's Day. Those of you that are watching on Facebook or Twitter, it would be pretty cool. I don't know if people could comment on this on Twitter. Jamie, my man up in Canadian, he is in the house. What's up, Jamie? So good. Facebook is good to go. And since this is the first time on Twitter, Master Chim 47 is my Twitter handle. I don't know if there's a better way of saying it. I post on Twitter. I don't tweet. So I call it the handle. I don't know if it's just your ID, your username, I guess, whatever. But Master Chim 47 is where you can find me on Twitter. So what's up, Aaron? What's up, Philip? Alan, what's going on, my man? All right, good. Good group today. So let's get into what I had planned. And we will start off. The idea of tribal ain't viral. All right. So what is it that I mean by that? Tribal ain't viral. So tribal, in a sense, things that are, referring to just about every, definition I've given on tribe, to bring that up to speed, or bring everybody up to speed on what that is, by my definition, because, words matter, terms matter. If I'm going to be using these words formulaically, it only makes sense that I would ensure that everybody understands the value of all the terms I'm using. So tribe is the alliance that an individual is a part of that addresses or is designed to give that individual a return on investment in the form of legacy, right? So what's up, Todd? What's up, Will? When we're talking about tribe, we're talking about a group of people that are connected to you in a way that you will start to, because one of the things that occurs, the phenomenon that occurs in tribe that does not necessarily occur in other alliances, is the idea of sacrifice. Okay, sacrifice. The easiest example, to illustrate this idea is a parent and a child. A parent would jump in front of a moving, car to push their child out of the way if they, even if they knew that they would wind up getting run over, in their child's place. So the idea of sacrifice is when somebody's looking at another identity as a reflection or a connection, extension even, of themselves. In you, I see me. Therefore, I will sacrifice so that I may flourish. And that is the relationship when we start using the term tribe, or when I start using the term tribe. That's the distinction to be made. Not to be confused with a group of identities coming together for a shared mission, forming the collective of an alliance, right? So an alliance that addresses legacy is where I reserve the term tribe. Now, obviously, tribe we use colloquially, and everybody's using tribe, this and that, and it's funny. But I have a couple of coaching students up in Canada, and one of them, it's a few years back, expressed to me, and I don't know, what life is like in Canada, but they expressed to me a hesitancy to use tribe with their employees in their company. And I didn't realize that there was such a a shaming from indigenous peoples, or it's like those are the, I guess, the the people, the group of people that the liberals take care of up there, socially, narcissistically, like we have all the Karens, the white liberal progressive women down here in America who think they need to take care of black people. Up there, apparently, there's a bunch of people who think they need to take care of the indigenous, groups and tribes. So the term tribe has a different connotation, I was told, up in Canada. Obviously, I reject all of that fucking nonsense. Like, nobody's monopolizing a fucking word to me. So because the thing is, there is no energy in it aside from how I use it. So for me, it's like, yeah, tribe is this. By the way, if you're a tribal group, that's kind of how this works for you too. So the fuck are you talking about? Anyway, so tribal ain't viral. So now let's talk about viral. So I remember on a title card, I think I put it on. Yeah, I put it on a title card. It is the idea of loyalty versus likes, right? Loyalty versus likes. And I put that there just to make sure I made the distinction of, in this day and age, when you say viral, like you gotta make sure you know what you're talking about, or people know what you're talking about. And I'm talking about in terms of, a viral, like, meme, a social meme, or a meme through the internet via social media, it could be, right? So memes prior to social media were like these just social phenomenons or phenomena whereby a bunch of people would collectively just start doing a thing or reflecting some sort of cultural anomaly, and it would be a wave of popularity that would ensue, that would make it a meme. And like a wave, it would rise, and then it would dissipate, and then it would be something that we would refer to way back when. And memes obviously have taken on a different application with social media and or the internet in general. And when I'm talking about loyalty versus likes and viral, like this is the the play field, that I'm talking about, that I'm referring to, right? So Jamie says, Johnny Groove, what's up, brother man? He says, tribe, chief, not First Nations words, right? And that's what's up, no name, and that's the thing. Like, you're not fucking owning language. I remember one time, oh fuck it, let's get this thing taken off the internet right at the beginning of it. But fuck it, it's appropriate to what I'm talking about. I remember having the discussion with students of mine way back when in the Bronx about the magic words, right, and how words offending people. And you guys will know, like, imagine being so weak that even words hurt you. Like, I'm the one that fucking put that out there in like 2015, and there were a whole bunch of other usually Viking themed memes that had that saying, which I wasn't that mad about, but the whole thing is, I put that out there way back when, and the context in which I first shared it was a talk that I would give on magic words, and saying that if there were words that I can say that would initiate an emotional reaction, an energized emotional reaction in somebody else, like, isn't that kind of what we would expect magic to do? So hence the term magic words, and how we can't believe in other people's magic, because when we don't believe in it, we become immune to it. And I remember getting one of my black students, right, and asking him, so if I call you a nigger, how does that make you feel? And the one that I chose was one of the guys that was pretty squared away. So he was already like, he laughed, and he was like, he's like, I get called that all the time by by other black people, so it's not really a thing. But during the talk, and this was in a mixed group, it wasn't like my inner circle guys that tend to be more squared away. I chose somebody that was a little bit more vulnerable to these types of discussions, and I asked him the same thing. And he got very, he got went to his locker, he got the soapbox, he put the soapbox out, got on top of it, and proceeded to say, some impromptu speech that he thought he was compelled to say. And it was all nonsense. It was all emotional. It was all, just him cathartically dealing with the discomfort that he was experiencing. And I made the point, like that is literally a sound that's coming out of my mouth. It can be reduced to, obviously, it has a little bit more meaning, but it's up to us to give it that meaning. And if we put a meaning or an energy into a word that that affects us, negatively, then I'm just an advocate for not doing that. It's not to ignore what the value could be or how other people are, receiving that word. Um, but it's don't make yourself vulnerable to that. So all that being said, um, getting into the language that I use it, very descriptively, and try to use them functionally and in the context of what I talk about, formulaically. Right. So tribal ain't viral. What's up, Derek? The English word, Jamie says, uh, the English word spell goes back to the meaning of a moving oratory, gospel, or the spell of God. Very interesting. Fucking Jamie's good for that. Jamie knows some shit. I appreciate that. So, um, tribal ain't viral. Now, I made a couple of examples in the email that I put out. By the way, if you guys have not signed up to my email, it's masterchim.com. It's free. I send one out every day. Talk about some stuff. Usually have a quote of the day. Usually have some sort of affiliate code driven, share about something that I'm using that, I offer. But all that being said, in today's email, I left the three questions here, right, to talk about, sort of lead the conversation. And obviously, tribal and viral being the topic, the questions that I had written down to prompt this. I'll talk about all the questions and then I'll get into them specifically. And then, I'll answer some questions and maybe get into some other examples of the point I'm trying to make today. But the three things that I asked were, why did Matt Walsh shit the bed on Rogan, on the Joe Rogan show? Why didn't Trump fire Fauci? And why is Kim Kardashian a billionaire? All these things, were put in the conversation of what is tribal not being viral, right? So we talked about what is tribal, things, the alliance of people, the community that addresses an individual's legacy, right? Family, community, a bunch of different ways we could look at it. And then viral, something that is sort of gaining a disproportionate increase in popularity because of a collective consciousness, sort of embracing it together, and it becomes super super popular, creates a lot of energy because of that, and then eventually dissipates. So when something goes viral, pretty much it catches fire. Now, logistically, how do things go viral? Well, there's a combination of things. Number one, depends on the platform. If you have somebody with I don't know, 10 million followers on Twitter, let's say, and he says something like, "Oh, this new shirt from Company X is the best thing I've ever worn." It's like, yeah, that shirt might go viral, in its popularity online and in society and whatever, as an example, right? So a platform could be how something goes viral. There could be a relevance and a sort of cultural um, support for something's relevance that makes it go viral. Um, you'll see a lot of things, on the left, super progressives. They are super, emotional a lot of times, and things are, you know, it's very easy to make an emotional person, to sort of lead an emotional person by triggering them in the way that they become emotional. And I remember, when gay marriage was made legal at a federal level. um, I made a shirt, like a gay marriage shirt, like a pro gay marriage shirt, and just to sort of show, like prove a point that anybody can make money off of anybody doing whatever they want. I didn't sell many shirts because obviously I was a little conflicted, and I didn't really put a lot of energy into selling it. But the idea of it was, when people are emotional, it's so easy to just take advantage of them. And a lot of times you get these viral things that are leveraged by people who are in the know to generate money and whatnot. So when you have people with big platforms, that's something, that's a way that something could become viral. When you have an emotional group, an emotional, collection of people, when you give them, fuel for that fire, it's very easy for them to sort of take it and run with it and share it virally amongst themselves, to where big enough group it can become significant. You have the powers that be, and this, I guess, may be a subset of the platform, but the powers that be may decide to spotlight some things over others. And it's obviously the conditioning that we see with the media that's going on. Like, why are some things more relevant than others? Remember Hunter's laptop before the last presidential election. I don't care what side of the political spectrum you were on. You have to acknowledge that was suppressed, that was made antiviral, right? So I don't know what the opposite of viral would be, but they used that power that they have, the media, to make sure it never became viral, so that sort of fire didn't catch on, so to speak, collectively. So there's all, so we have the platform, we have the emotional group that could be led, we have the people that are controlling, how people are conditioned and their exposure. I guess a subset of that also is the algorithms, of these social media platforms. What are the algorithms designed to promote, and even incentivize in that case? And what are they, designed to disincentivize, right? Or sort of, eliminate or hide, from the collective. I remember being shadow banned on social media years ago. I had no idea what shadow banning was. And I've spoken about it before. I'm not going to get into it, but at one point, I think I had 60 something thousand people on the Master Chim page on Facebook. And then suddenly it just started dwindling. Like 1 month, like it was just going up. And then suddenly it started dwindling, and then it hung out around 50K. And I think it's between 48 and 50 now. I don't even know, last time I checked. And I would only imagine it's because I'm gaining people at a rate that was at least matching what I was losing. And, I have tens of thousands of people. And years ago, I would share something. And 1 week, I would share something and it would have, 500 shares within 48 hours. And then a week after that, I would have 3 shares within 48 hours. And it's like I stopped even paying attention to the metrics. I was like, you know what? Fuck this whole thing. And that's, those of you who've been following me for a while, that's when the pressure project, when I stopped doing the pressure project, when I started doing more of my coaching, my membership group, I started doing things behind the scene, because I was like, all right, this is no longer a reliable battlefield that I have here in social media. So I have to sort of take this, the people that connect with me, and bring them elsewhere where I have a little bit more control, which is why I'm always talking about my email list, because my email is my email list. I'm going to be able to contact you, no matter what happens to me on platforms. So that being said, those are a bunch of different ways that things can go viral. So tribal content is not going to go viral, because at some point we have to understand the individual that's trying to be viral, they have a mission that transcends the scope of their loyalty to their tribe. So some of the things you'll see, some of the phenomena you'll see in society right now that are so incredibly pathetic is you'll get people now who, parents who will look to basically whore out their children. And it just used to be like a beauty pageant thing. Sometimes you'll see it with Hollywood actors, kid actors, the parents, the overbearing parents that are just trying to vicariously live, through the children. One of the things you'll see when this happens is the child will get some traction in entertainment in some way, and then the parent will try to promote themselves. They'll keep, trying to promote themselves to see if something catches on, because ultimately they are the ones that want to be famous. They're the ones that have that, narcissistic dream of fame and whatnot. And what'll happen is you'll see that these individuals, these pathetic, individuals, um, becoming viral, or we could swap out viral for famous or popular or even rich, becomes primary, and any tribal loyalties they have become secondary. um, Beyond that, the tribe almost becomes just like a toolbox that they could use whenever it fits their mission, right? So in society, you'll have the parents that whore out their children. You have the people who um, will be unhealthy mentally, physically, both, who will continue day in and day out to argue with strangers on the internet. And I would say, in that sense, wanting to be right and wanting the approval of strangers transcends any loyalties they have to being the best member of their tribe they can be, to fulfilling the obligations that they've made. So that's another example of a phenomenon that exists because people want to be viral more than tribal. Another take on that, it's how being tribal will prevent one from being viral on the internet, right? For, because that's the relevant space that we would use that term, right? So, faithful tribe, thank you. Thank you. Same to you. So, let's get to, Matt Walsh. And I don't have any clips here. I'm always, I don't know how the fuck they do copyrights. And if I share something, are they going to take it down, or I don't fucking know. But Matt Walsh was on Joe Rogan. I'm not a fan of Joe Rogan. I may have mentioned that over the years. And one of the reasons that in this particular instance, I don't hold Joe Rogan accountable for any of the things I'm criticizing is because Joe Rogan's Joe Rogan. He's going to do what he's always done. What that actually means is something that I don't overlap with, hence a lot of the criticisms I've had for him. But Matt Walsh is somebody that I like. Matt Walsh, I dig his content. I appreciate his delivery. He's sharp, and I like when he uses that um, in ways that overlap with a lot of my positions and my beliefs. Of course, there's some offset. He's a Christian. I'm not a Christian. There's always going to be a little bit, but that's fine. But we have compatible views. But then Matt Walsh went on Joe Rogan. So now here's the thing. I told you guys before the story about, White Boy Pat and I going to Discovery Studios years ago. And it wasn't some big, like, hey, I was this close to having this big show. And like, I'm not saying any of that because that wasn't the truth. But we were called by a producer, or like an associate producer, to come down and do an interview to talk about, a potential show for the podcast that we had, or using the brand and theme of the podcast for a show. And I was there 5 minutes and knew it was a waste of time because you just saw that there was, in the context of the conversation we were having, they were sort of putting they were opening the doors of compliance, I guess we could say, in the conversation, giving me the opportunity to show that I would be compliant, to show, like, basically, how bad do you want it? It's the Team America reference. How much do you love your country, Justin? So it was one of those situations where it was like, yeah, this isn't going to work out. And I know what it is. And I don't even fault those producers. This is what they're doing. Like, okay. But I just knew there was an overlap and I kept it moving. But I was somebody who was, putting content out on the internet, somewhat controversial, had a following, a growing following. And in that Discovery Studios situation, I had the opportunity to sort of tap into or connect with a much bigger audience. And I was like, fuck that, like, listen, I'm still trying to connect with a bigger audience. That never changed, but it has to be on my terms. It has to be in a way that never overrides my prioritizing tribe. So I had to make sure that I modified the way that I spent my time, the way that I made that I continue to make a living, to make sure it was a way that I could also maintain my integrity and take care of my people who rely on me. All that being said, Matt Walsh on Joe Rogan. Matt Walsh is a content creator. Matt Walsh, he's got a good gig with the Daily Wire. So it's not like, it was a make it or break it moment, which I would say lends itself to even more criticism. But he went on Rogan, and like so many people, um, they know what Rogan represents. Joe Rogan is the biggest podcast on the planet. Joe Rogan, um, tens of millions of views every time he puts a show out and stuff. And uh, I've never watched a Joe Rogan episode, in its entirety or anything close to its entirety. I've certainly watched clips here and there, on YouTube with relevant guests and things that, that I was interested in hearing what somebody had to say, but never for Rogan. I never cared about what Rogan said, but I also understand Rogan is crushing it, when it comes to winning the internet game. Now, along with that, there comes a lot of formulas that I don't agree with, which of course ties into all the criticisms that I usually have for him. But with Matt Walsh was walking into, to some extent, depending on what they were discussing, the lion's den on some topics. And there was a part of, I haven't seen the whole episode, so, full disclosure, and sure, I probably should have, but I didn't, whatever the reason, I just didn't. But I did see a clip of, I think that I saw two clips. One of somebody sharing the conversation that he was having with Walsh, where Walsh like fucked up, citing a number of how many kids are on puberty blockers. And Joe Rogan wasn't even coming after him, but Matt Walsh he made a mistake. And in sort of real time, he's realizing that he made a mistake. So I almost don't even fault him for that. But the left loved that Matt Walsh like mischaracterized how many kids were getting, puberty blockers. But that's, if anything, it's like lack of preparation, maybe. But the big thing is the conversation about gay marriage that they had. And like, here's the thing. You could have whatever position you want. Just be consistent. And there have been people, especially, I did a review on Matt Walsh's documentary, What is a Woman? I thought it was a very valuable and relevant, documentary for today, and that people should watch and support. I think he did a good job, and it was balanced enough that it didn't get too campy or slapstick, nor was it too analytical and academic. It was entertaining. So all that being said, like, again, I support a lot of his stuff. I like a lot of his stuff. He went soft on the conversation he was having with Joe Rogan, and having watched so much of Matt Walsh's content, I refuse to believe that it was because he was, out intellectualized by Joe Rogan. Matt Walsh is a sharp dude. Joe Rogan's a fucking weirdo. He's like I'm not going to get into that. I'm pretty certain that Matt Walsh could handle an intellectual, hand to hand with Joe Rogan. That's the point. And he just went soft. And it begs the question, well, okay, are you trying to not get the Steven Crowder treatment? All right, I don't know if you guys recall, Steven Crowder a couple of years ago was on Joe Rogan. And, one of Rogan's pet, topics, weed, marijuana. Steven Crowder's he's a choir boy, man. Like, he's not about it. He doesn't support it. He's not. And he, I give Crowder so much credit. He was very respectful and just refused to acknowledge anything, that would compromise, his position, and I just feel that with Matt Walsh, he was sort of pulling back because he didn't want to sabotage in any way his alliance with Joe Rogan because of the notoriety and popularity, the viral, capabilities that Joe Rogan's, show represents. And it's one of these sort of, is this a sellout moment for Matt Walsh? Like, is he being the same Matt Walsh that he always is? Like, if you're being the same person you always are being, then that's not, I have no criticisms, in the context of this conversation. I'm just saying, when people maintain tribal loyalty, there's a cap on how viral they're going to go collectively in society. Now, it doesn't mean that, well, nobody, everybody should stay so loyal to their tribe that they can't build alliances or talk about things with people that have a lot of offset from them. I'm not saying that, but Matt Walsh is a guy who basically has built his brand and content around certain topics. And he should consider himself, or at least have the responsibility, the obligation, the accountability of presenting himself as an expert, which means he's got to walk the walk when given the opportunity. And I think had he fully engaged his side of the argument when it came to gay marriage, I think that he and Rogan would have gotten into it. I think it would have gotten potentially aggressive. And I think, who knows what would have ensued. Maybe he doesn't get invited back. Maybe now he's bad mouthing Rogan, on his own show. But that's just not the case. And I've seen this happen over and over again with these people who just want that access, to the big crowd, and they make compromises in how they conduct themselves because of it. And again, you could say, well, a guy that, because I don't know Joe Rogan, use him as the example. I don't know him. I'm pretty sure he's married and has children. And Joe Rogan is I don't know who his wife and children are. I applaud him for that. I applaud that he hasn't ever taken his family and put them out in the spotlight and tried to whore them out in any way. Not that putting your family out there is whoring them out, but he has absolutely not done that, and he also, I don't know how he takes care of his people. If he takes care of his people, then the criticism that I have is purely, as one individual and another individual with our positions and beliefs. There's no personal thing when it comes to criticizing Joe Rogan's value as a husband, as a father, because if he takes care of his people, he takes care of his people. But again, when we're talking about Matt Walsh going there, it's are you the same Matt Walsh that was dressing down, in a deadpan delivery, by the way, and very effectively, people in the street when it came to, his documentary and the content that you saw in the documentary, or his bit with that he does with the canceling. He cancels people. He goes in on these people. I love it. I think he does a great job. But here you have Joe Rogan, who is basically dismissing, a core belief of Matt Walsh, gay marriage as opposed to marriage with a man and a woman. That's a core foundational belief that Matt Walsh's content is built on. You have to do a better job. And I'm not saying that he couldn't have done a better job. I'm just saying that maybe he chose viral over tribal in that one instance. And that's, the fuel for my criticism. The next example I gave was Trump and Fauci. So Trump, who just announced that he was going to run again. Holy shit, right? Here we go again. I voted for Trump in 2020. I voted for him in 2016. If he wins the primary against DeSantis, I'll vote for him again in 24. If he runs as an independent, I will not vote for him. Because I am not a fanboy of any of these guys. I know that the left represents a machine, and that machine is controlled by everybody or anybody but the person who's the figurehead thrust in front of the camera. So I know that in the next coming election, I'm going to be voting against a whole lot of stuff. Not many things that I'm going to be voting for per se. Because one, pardon the pun, but trumps the other. All that being said, what are criticisms that I have for Trump? Well, they're numerous. Because I voted for Trump, because I supported Trump, because I think Trump did an incredible job as a president, and I do, it doesn't absolve him from any criticisms. One of them is at the beginning of this whole, pandemic, He could have got rid of Fauci. He could have got rid of all of them. He could have started from scratch. He could have started an organic process of developing experts that had some debate, that were running, randomized trials, were actually looking to do the job that ironically, science would have them do. But very early on, too early, not because I don't think this is something that can't happen, but I would say too early, Trump decided to start mounting his narrative for reelection. And I think that he didn't piss off some people, which obviously out of character for him, where he would have, even though being loyal to his base and being the person who he's claimed himself to be, would have expected him, demanded him to do so. Why is Fauci, still getting airtime? He's an employee of the fucking government. Like, why is Fauci getting this exposure when he is publicly contradicting Trump's narrative? Like, yeah, this is a whole administration. The whole idea of, well, what kind of tyrant do you want the president to be? He doesn't let people have differences of opinions. Like, no, you're not allowed to go in the media and undermine the president. Yeah, that's something that I don't think should happen. Can they argue and debate? Yeah. Behind closed doors, there should be a process whereby ultimately the president's administration, the decisions in his leadership takes precedence over any other individual's positions. They weren't elected, because that's the distinction here. It's not that, well, his advice is just as valuable as his advice. Like, no, one of them was elected by the citizens. The other one wasn't. Right? So that being the case, you see in Trump's mishaps that there were things he was doing to get reelected. Well, that would be the viral versus tribal dynamic that I'm criticizing today. Like, why would he think it's appropriate to spend an entire campaign talking about building a wall, and then he doesn't build a wall? Like, that's like the gimme. How do you not build a wall? Well, they didn't have the Congress's approval for the funding of, like, give me a fucking break. Okay. I mean, I am certainly not a political scientist, nor do I claim to be an expert in the machinations of the United States government and all of its logistical, moving parts. But I know damn well if Trump committed to building a wall, he would have built the fucking wall. I know Biden could send money to fucking Ukraine every few months, right? It's like, what are we fucking talking about here? So why do I think that Trump sort of followed, this line that was drawn by the other side? I think he was trying to build a narrative for reelection, and that's where I see him going sideways. Let's pick up a couple of comments here. Jay Crussell says Rogan would talk himself out of breathing if he was allowed. Yeah, not a fan. Not a fan. Derek, my man, Derek. Too many people thrive on ego. If strangers kiss their ass over the internet, it means more to them than doing right by their family. It's sad. Absolutely right. And we see this time and time again. Like, I know people. I'm sure you guys know people. You guys might be one of these people that everything that matters is going great. So much to be grateful for. And you will allow your day to be ruined by random internet people. You'll allow your day to be ruined by how some sport team's, outcome of the game was last night. And like these trivial things that are all made up. They're all abstract, connections to your life. None of them are real. But you will allow these things to trump real, actual value in your life. And you've been convinced that this is the way to exist. I shared a post. It was somebody else's post on that I saw on the internet somewhere, maybe on Instagram. And he made a couple of different points. about like all the things that all the things that are happening right now in society compared to 1776. And he said with all these things going on, the overwhelming priority of America's men is picking their fantasy football teams. And it's like, yeah, bread and circus. This is old wisdom, right? And you're absolutely seeing that on full display these days. Aaron says, speaking of White Boy Pat, you guys ever gonna do a show again together? Always enjoy those ones. We'll absolutely do stuff together in the future. Pat, I talk to him, frequently. He's still an owner and runs one of the Jungle Gym schools. Pat's family is growing. He's got, a whole crew, that he's got to look after nowadays. So one of the things that obviously changed is, just logistically, we got shit to do. We got places to be now. And I'll be the first one to say, like, the virtual co-hosting a show, it's different. When Pat and I are in the same room, there's just a magic there that cannot be, just reproduced, with us on a fucking Zoom or something like this, and but absolutely, we'll do something again eventually. Joe says Walsh's boss Ben Shapiro is also fast friends with Rogan. That overlap may also have been at play, and we can get into Shapiro. I don't know if I want to make that turn in this show. But what I will say is Ben Shapiro, he knows how to make allies. He knows how to make money. He knows how he's doing a very impressive job at the Daily Wire. I'm a member of the Daily Wire, full disclosure. But I don't know if you guys saw. I don't know if it was a week or two ago. Candace Owens was defending her friendship with Kanye West, and Ben Shapiro called her out publicly, criticizing her. I think that's what happened on Twitter, because of the Israel thing. So it's funny, but any criticism we could have for Shapiro, and I have plenty, that motherfucker sticks to his tribe. Like, he doesn't compromise his tribe, and you got to respect that about the guy, right? Not my tribe, his tribe, but who else should he be looking after? Right. So did that play a role with Walsh, putting on kid gloves? Again, maybe, but what is it that you're going to do? Like, I'll never go on the Joe Rogan show. Number one, because I'll never be invited. But number two is, like, maybe this is connected to number one. Even if there was some sort of reason, if I gained some cultural popularity at a level where Rogan's producers were like, yeah, we should have this guy on, I would never do it, because I would be supporting, what it is I think he stands for. And the thing is, like, so many people love Rogan. And listen, do you, whatever you're into. Oh, I just like his guests. I just like, okay, no problem. Hey, be entertained. They're entertainers, right? How many movies do I watch with people that are acted in or acted by complete pieces of shit, Marxist pieces of shit? So I don't want to be a hypocrite. Like, listen, if you like Rogan, watch Rogan, but what I do know is, in that situation, like most every other situation in my life, like, I'm going to say what I'm going to say. I'm going to be who I am, and I'm not going to compromise. And one of the reasons is not because I choose to be this hard-headed, stubborn, just contrarian. I just want to argue with people. It's like, no, every one of my positions is up for debate, but I'm never going to just say, hey, you love that, I love this, if we're talking about the thing that we disagree on. Because I think that's worth mentioning too. The whole thing, he's on Rogan. Rogan asked Walsh about gay marriage. Like, here we are. Like, yeah, you guys, you're not going to agree, but you got to come heavy. Why? Because this is Rogan's platform. There are going to be tens of millions. I don't know if you guys saw how much fodder that the left had after that against Walsh. Basically, making fun of Walsh, saying that Rogan made him look like an idiot, on those two specific points. I didn't watch the whole show, so I don't know if there were other things. But for me, it's like, well, what are you doing? This is you had the ability, and I think that's the thing that is most annoying. It's not that like he just shit the bed because of the bright lights, and like that's that he has already shown himself to be capable of handling himself under pressure. So I think it was more of a decision, or a weakness. It's just I don't want to, I don't want to upset Joe Rogan. I don't want to be disrespectful. I don't want, or even worse, well, Joe Rogan's not going to understand my point, so I'm better off just not making the argument. It's like you are on his show and he just called you out on this. Like you have to fucking handle yourself. But it's nope. They don't want to cut off access to that crowd, to that popularity, to that viral, potential, and that's the thing that I criticize. Aaron said, Candace Owens did a show where she talks about why her opinion on Trump has changed. Curious about that one. I did watch her talk about that. I think that was last week. And, so many people don't like Candace Owens. And, I guess you could say that for anybody. You could put any name, in place of Candace Owens. But the reasons that a lot of times people who would tend to overlap with me on a lot of positions, the reasons they give for not liking her, I got to be honest, I don't see. Right? I see Candace Owens as somebody who handles herself very well. She has a lot of traditional viewpoints that I think, and this is certainly some, this resonates with me and my own story, that just didn't jive with a lot of the liberal positions that she was raised having. Right. So my parents were never political, but it's like you grow up in New York City, like, yeah, we're supposed to blame everything on rich white people, right? We're supposed to, blame these people for being racist, right? We're the black brown community is poor because of the white communities, right? And that's how you're brought up, right? So by default, I get it. So when she had this sort of transition, like, admittedly, it resonated with me more than maybe the average viewer. So since then, when I've watched her, I've seen her. She's made her connections, with different people. She was with Charlie Kirk for a bit. Charlie Kirk, I'm not a fan of. I think Charlie Kirk is one of these guys that certainly, aligned with me on a lot of different political positions. But I think Charlie Kirk is trying to be powerful and famous. I don't think Candace Owens is trying to be powerful and famous. Candace Owens talks about, what's his name? Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, not because he's a Jew, but Dennis Prager. And she talks about how Dennis Prager was, an amazing individual and super supportive. And like, I know a lot of people in my life. I have the opportunity of knowing a lot of people that remind me of what I observe of Dennis Prager. And anything I've ever heard of people talking about Dennis Prager supports that. These people that are just super smart. They're not aggressive. They're very charismatic. They have definite positions, but they are masters at maintaining alliances with people who are on the polar opposite views of them at points. And it's impressive. And Candace Owens talks about how, when she was working with PragerU, like they accommodated her any way she wanted. And so she had nothing bad to say. So the point with Candace being, she seems to be pretty consistent in how she represents her relationships with people. And yeah, she supported Kanye West. He wasn't the most popular guy to support at the time, and she did. Part of that, and she says as much, it's like, yeah, like him liking her or saying something about her years back helped thrust her into the bigger conversation on the internet. And that's what, a leverage or an energy that she leveraged and ran with. And she seems pretty consistent with that. So her talking about Trump and how her opinion changed of Trump, there is a point where you listen to what she says and it's like, I get it. She's like, because I agree. Why is Trump still touting himself as being the savior because of Operation Warp Speed and the billions of dollars that he's made for the drug industry? Not that that's mutually exclusive. Either you help people or you make them money. Like, sure, they're making drugs that are supposed to save lives. So it would be expected that there is a middle ground where everybody wins. But that obviously wasn't the case. But it's something that he did that was impressive logistically, and he can't discard it. You know, maybe it's probably because of his ego, I would say at this point. But, maybe he thinks at some point, well, this is what makes me valuable as a candidate. This is on my resume. I don't want to take it off my resume because having this warp speed, process with creating vaccines is impressive. And I would say logistically, not that again, I don't know all the inner machinations of the fucking government, but it's like, yeah, you everybody collectively say it takes this amount of time to build a vaccine. He had it in this time, and satisfied a lot of people. But that vaccine nonsense is something that we're still battling as a society. And he's somebody who fucking laid the foundation for it. Like there are people who are still vaccinating their children. It's like, you fucking retards. There's enough information now that you could go and look and read on your own that shows vaccinating your child, I think, literally makes you retarded. I think you probably you have access to some government funding if like you vaccinate your child because you're fucking retarded. Like a bus will bring you to the fucking store if you need or something like that. Accessoride, right? I don't fucking know. But point being, when Candace Owens talks about the evolving relationship with Trump, it's like, yeah, that makes sense because I'm somebody who I've already said, like, listen, if it's him as the candidate on the right side, I'm going to vote for him. If it's DeSantis, I'm going to vote for DeSantis. If DeSantis beats Trump in the primary and Trump decides to run as an independent, I'm going to vote for DeSantis. Because at that point, Trump's not trying to help. He's just trying to still be the guy. Now, he could still be the guy and help at the same time. He got a lot of good done, those 4 years that he was president. Right? So this all evolves over time. And the things that I'm looking at are, well, how do people treat their people? Candace Owens, to use her as a continued example, is married. She has a child. She stayed home, she's taking care of the child. Like she talks about her husband, her relationship, very traditional, I believe he's Catholic. She's some other flavor of Christian. I don't keep up, you have to forgive me. But it's like, yeah, she's walking the walk. And there are a lot of people that aren't, So let's see what else. Neil says it's all a game. I absolutely agree. Ivan, what's going on, brother man? Good to see you. Hope you're well. Thank you, Corey. Jamie Martin says, sounds like Ezra Levant, Gavin McGinnis, Lawrence Subban, Faith Goldie, and Rebel Media thing in the wake of the visit to Israel years ago. Well, there's something to be said for, people just choosing the pot of gold. I do well, financially. I do well. Like my family is supported. And I have everything that I need. And I even had a lot of stuff that I want. But I've paid the price at multiple points in my life of just refusing to bow down for the pot of gold. And I'm going to keep being me. I enjoy doing these talks. That's why I do them. There are plenty of things logistically that I have to abide by in order to keep the machine running because I also have a wife and 4 kids. But I am proactively engaged in creating business so that there's enough of a surplus in my access to resources that I am never tempted or reduced to having to choose a pot of gold over my identity. And I think it's just something that, some people are willing to just play that game. And I'm not saying that there's not a right way to do that. I just haven't seen it. Maybe one of those guys can come and fill me in how you can get to the top, at a societal level without selling out and compromising your beliefs. A lot of my beliefs, I think worth mentioning, have evolved over the years. Some of them are outright changed over the years. But I'm always honest about that. And I'm always exposing myself to the criticisms that come with those types of evolutions and changes. But there are a lot of people out there that, they're always going to choose the pot of gold, the popularity, the strangers over the people that are actually worth a shit, over the people in their lives that actually validate their existence. Right? Think about how many like sports coaches, football coaches, baseball coaches, basketball coaches who like don't spend time with their kids. But these millions of people love how they help these men win this game consistently. But they have children that grew up without them there. It's like, that's a problem to me. Maybe they found a way to work it out. To me, it's a problem. You don't have to be there for your kids all the time. Like, I have too many military friends. They're going on 3-month, 6-month deployments. I'm supposed to criticize them as a father? It's like, no. They're living a lifestyle that adds context to that absence from the everyday, experience of their children. And that is going to get woven into the values and the lessons that the children are supposed to learn. There is value in doing things like that. But you're not around your kids because you're coaching, millionaires in a game around the country. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. Listen, if I was what would I be? I'd probably be a football coach more than anything. Yeah. If I had to pick a sport, probably be a football coach. If I was a football coach, world famous football coach, I can't be a football coach. Like, I played football. I couldn't be a coach. But if I was a football coach and I was getting paid millions of dollars to coach, this team, like, me, my wife, and my kids would be traveling together. We'd find a way to make that work. Because that would be the priority. It's like, hey, I got to leave for 3 days, come back. Yeah, that's one thing. But I'm going to be gone for 2 months. I'm going to be gone for this. Like, and I don't know, maybe these guys do that. It's not the people that do it that I'm even referring to here then. It's really those people that they just fucking have this thing upside down. I don't get it. Jeff says, would you ever do classes or school up in the Poconos? I will have a school up here eventually. Right? I don't know if I've ever said that publicly, but I've certainly, told plenty of people that offline. A couple things need to happen before that happens. When the timeline for that is, I don't know. I have a couple of friends that own schools up here, and I'm a tribal guy. I would go to these people and let them know what my intentions are and find a way to make it work. But yeah, like, I'm a coach, I'm a teacher. Like, that's what I'm going to do. I have 4 kids that need to train, and we're not taking 2-hour trips to the Bronx and back every day, so absolutely. It's inevitable. Jamie says, Gavin backtracked his criticism of the trip. Goldie got fired and Southern quit. That's what happens. That's what happens. And see, the thing is, I know, not that I absolve anybody of the accountability of their actions, but I know there are people who are playing the game, then got to a certain level, and then were filled in on what the game actually was. I just know that I am not so naive to think that it was something other than what it was right from the beginning. Like, I am sitting there with White Boy Pat in Discovery Studios in downtown Manhattan and telling him, like, yeah, this ain't going to work. And I know the lion's share of individuals hosting some sort of podcast in that same situation would be looking to hand out fucking hand jobs to anybody that would fucking let them get a word in edgewise. They would sell a child to get a Discovery show. To me, it was just like a fucking Tuesday. Like, yeah, this is not going to. I don't fucking care. I just don't care. Aaron says, speaking of Kanye, what do you think of his name change? I'll be honest, I don't. Derek says, I missed a few Wednesdays. This Fetterman guy, I'm sorry. God bless PA. Oh, man. A couple nights ago, I was driving um, on a road up here, and it's maybe a 4 mile stretch in the middle of the woods, and I hit a fucking black bear. Right, black bear hit, and I'm driving. Right, I'm driving, and the bear's about to hit like in front. Now it's all dark. I have a certain amount of degrees of light, that my headlights project. But that's like if that went this way, the bear was right outside of that until he was right here. So I was luckily able to sort of offset and shift because if he had gotten in front of the car and I was driving, I have a minivan, like it would have been a fucking problem. Like I don't know what would have happened, but it couldn't have been good. It's a big fucking bear, right? So I was able to move, and he wound up smacking into the side of my car and fucked up the fender, fucked up the bumper. I was talking to my brother yesterday, and I told him, "Yeah, I fucked up the quarter panel." And he goes, "Wait a minute, it hit the back of the car too?" And I was like, "No, the thing in the front. I don't know what it's fucking called." I tried to make it sound like I knew what it's called. I don't fucking know. My brother's the guy that knows that shit. But it was the fender and the bumper I fucked up. And the point of all this is one of my friends, Carla Price, was asking, well, Jeff, her husband, they're big bear hunters up here, wants to know where, how big was the bear and where was it? And I said to tell him, I think it might have been Fetterman, so don't worry about it. So that was a long Fetterman reference. But it's funny, you talk about there's a difference between morality and function, right? So the left right now, they have a very dysfunctional morality. They voted for an individual with brain damage to the United States Congress because of their tribal drives. There's something to be said for that. It's funny, the whole, let's touch on politics for a second here. The red wave that never happened. I am of the belief that one of the big reasons it doesn't happen is because the left functionally does tribalism right, which is kind of ironic because they claim to be anti-tribal and all this shit, but they functionally do tribalism right. They have everybody emotionally connected with their identity to certain political positions, and these people will vote for somebody with brain damage. Now, it could be argued, yeah, well, even though he has brain damage, it's not the local election that you vote for him for. You vote because of representation at the federal level, but now it's like that's what this country has become. We're sacrificing the the loyalty of a representative to his constituents because of the game being played at a federal level. Was Dr. Oz a carpetbagger coming here from Jersey? So yeah, he was, but he wasn't brain damaged. He's a fairly moderate dude. It's funny. One of the criticisms of Trump 2016, everybody was losing their mind because of the narrative was conditioning them to think Trump was like the Antichrist. But Trump was never fucking extreme right. Trump was just an asshole. Trump just had an unapologetic way of citing his fucking points and didn't give a fuck what anybody thought. And that just wasn't the norm. But he was never some far right guy. He's from New York. New York doesn't grow Nazis. It's fucking ridiculous. Yeah, funny. The left elected a president with brain damage too. Absolutely right. And I would say another example, probably, I guess, the primary example of what it is that I'm talking about. They don't give a fuck. And this was said by a lot of people, during that last presidential election. A lot of people were just voting against Trump. It makes sense. I just cited before there's going to be a lot of things. I made the joke on election day. I went to vote, and one of the ladies trying to make small talk. Oh, so you know who you're voting for? And I said, I'm not voting for anybody. I'm here to vote against a bunch of motherfuckers. I didn't curse, but that because it's the game. Right? This is what we do. Don't bother voting. Your vote doesn't matter. Well, it's like if you're allowed to vote, you should vote. Just don't place any more expectations than it deserves. That's the whole thing. It's like, yeah, I'll vote. It'd be nice if who I voted for won, but I understand the somewhat insignificant, role that I play in this whole game that's being played collectively. Right? So the thing is, you could want to vote and still not think that the whole fucking outcome is going to hinge upon it. That's what I don't get. Voting's a waste of time. Like, I guess, like, what were you going to do on election day that that was worth more than voting? Like, maybe if you're like, hey, I can go and vote, or I could, go and teach this seminar and make $10,000. It's like, yeah, go teach that seminar, motherfucker. Jamie says in Sierra Leone, they have a saying to the effect that even if your tribal brother does you wrong, you support him. And in the rich district, the poor literally drink sewage water from their rich political tribal brethren. And I'm somebody who you'll never hear me badmouth an ally publicly. I don't get it. Like, I've banned friends of mine on social media because they wanted to argue about something publicly on social media. And it's like, yeah, we could argue in person. Like, you make us look weak by doing this. And that's, another application of the concept, parents. Parents should never argue in front of the children. The united front, right? This is old wisdom. Like, people understand this. But you have people who still don't get that because of their just addiction to their own identities, their narcissistic drives, to make everything about them, and it's just limited in its potential. All right. I did have another example. Oh, Kardashian, right? So the last example, I'm not going to spend too much time, so we're going pretty long here. Why is Kardashian a billionaire? Well, we have a society that is looking to reward behavior that is entertaining while simultaneously representing the destruction of the fabric of our society. There are some people, I used to find it really interesting. There's a YouTube page, Soft White Underbelly. I think that's the name of it, Soft White Underbelly. And I think YouTube made some changes in its terms of service that compromised that channel's ability to put out these interviews that the guy does. But an incredible, incredible resource of, like, if you like studying people, which I do, the stories that you get, are just incredible. The way he presents them, the guy does a great job. Anyway, one of the things you'll see a lot of times on that is he has a lot of pimps, right? And they're popular guests, interview guests. Like, who doesn't want to hear what a fucking pimp has to say? Some of them have their fucking outfits on. Some of them are a little bit more, low key, and but there's a fascination with this subculture that people have, myself included. Like, I don't get, like, I want to root for these people for having reasons for doing this that are just beyond my level of understanding, and I want them to help me out. Hasn't happened yet, but you have these individuals that these pimps that are asked, and this is an incredible, valuable, because I've always wanted to do this. What would you do if your daughter wanted to be a working girl? And by and large, these pimps will say, and listen, there's a whole sort of moral judgment that goes along with this. And I'm just putting that on the side, just looking at this like a robot, just studying behavior like science. They will say, well, if that's what she chooses to do, then that's what she chooses to do. I can't be in the game and fault her for wanting to be in the game. And I would say the overwhelming majority of pimps that were asked that have that position. There are a couple that are saying, well, I'm doing this so she wouldn't have to do that. Like, that's the thing. Or they'll suggest that, well, their daughter could become a pimp, right? A pimp pimpess. I don't know what the term is, but whatever. A madam, is that it? Um, but by and large, a lot of them are very consistent in their views. So the reason I even bring that up in this context is there are people who will look at Kim Kardashian and how she made her money, and they'll go, yeah, well, good for her. And there's a preference involved in that. Now, I think that preference is not compatible with a functioning society, the way Western civilization has evolved to become and is currently eroding from being. But if somebody's consistent, they're consistent. But I would say that right now, if I ask the overwhelming majority of people that support the Kardashians in some way, if I were to ask them, would you want your daughter to make money off of a sex tape? Make money off of some guy recording himself defiling your daughter's body? Not married? Would you want your daughter to get rich that way? I tell you, I'm fucking nervous to what people would say these days. And that's exactly why I would use as an example of Tribal not being viral. Because in order to support Kim Kardashian, like, listen, I don't know this girl. Like, I'm probably guessing she's got some fucking issues, and I'm willing to say that that's probably the case. But I will say I don't know her. But I do know that I've never supported anything she's done because I can't support somebody getting notoriety for doing that type of stuff. I can't, because when you support it, you incentivize it as a formula that wins. Collectively, we all have these criticisms for these people that stay on welfare, these people that take advantage of the system, these people well, I've said from day one, the reason they do it is because it works. And we can criticize it all day long. But we have to disincentivize it if we actually want to make a difference. So you have a lot of people that'll watch Kardashian show or shows. I don't know what the fuck she does, or buy her stuff. I don't know what she sells. Support her in some way while simultaneously criticizing her. Oh, she's a slut. She's this. She's that. It's like, well, fucking which one is it? Which one is it? So it's really consistency that I'm looking at. And you can't be viral in society these days because being viral has nothing to do with being moral. And being moral is acting in a way that is functional for your tribe. Everybody has tribal values, the collective values of the people, of them as individuals and the people that are connected to them where legacy is concerned, whatever that happens to be. Some of them are completely functional. Some of them are only functional because they're in the aquarium, right? Some of them are dysfunctional. But the problem is that you have a bunch of individuals that want to be famous, but who they are has a ceiling that is far below what it would take to be the person that exists at this level. And that's the problem they have. So somebody like me, hey, I could just be making an hour-long show about being angry that I'm not more popular. Like, maybe that's what this is. I don't know. That's not for me to decide. But what I do know, there have been plenty of times in my life where I've been given the opportunity to compromise my position for a pot of gold. And I just refuse to do it. I've said before, you could go to the Jungle Gym Martial Arts' Google page and look at the bad reviews that my business has gotten and look at some of my replies to them. Not the most professional replies. And, how did I improve how that's handled? I forbade myself from applying to them because I can't not be me. I can't do it. So for me, I know that there's a limit to how popular I can get. And I try to design new ways to fortify my position, because the whole reason I'm even making this talk right now is because this is connected to a world of productivity that allows me to provide for my family. Now, maybe if I was independently wealthy, I don't know how it would happen. independently wealthy. Some fucking dude on the other side of the planet, maybe a Nigerian, left me all these millions of dollars, right? It actually held true. And I had all these millions. And then I didn't need any more money. Like, I don't know what I would do. I don't know. I've had this conversation with my inner circle students before. And it's like, fuck, man, if I was independently wealthy, would I still even have a school? I think I would. But I wouldn't charge membership dues. I'd have like tryouts. I'd run it like a ninja clan, right? I'd have all these tests like some fucking 80s kung fu movie, and I'd run it that way. But I would never try to be popular. I got thrown out of the gym a couple of weeks ago up here because I was helping these high school kids squat. I didn't tell this last week. All right, this will be the last thing before I get off. At the gym, and I'm squatting. It's the same one I put in a bunch of videos. I'm squatting every day. It's like the gym with the yellow racks and the red whatever. It's a retro fitness. And I was squatting. It was a Sunday afternoon. Just finished being in New York. Came back. Was like, let me hit the gym before I go home. Start off with my squats, and there's two kids, high school kids, squatting next to me. They're not even going a quarter of the way down. A lot of weight, not doing much. High school kids. As is usually the case, I look over and I go, hey guys, you should probably get a little bit more range of motion. And I said something, constructive, not critical. Well, inherently critical, but not disrespectful. They're high school kids. And I don't know them. But I'm a guy. I think there was 4 plates. I was squatting right next to them. Obviously, I know what the fuck I'm talking about when it comes to squatting. And I just offered some advice. When I was coming up, people offered me advice. This is the way it works. And they ignored me. They didn't say anything to me. They looked at me like there was a fucking a pane of glass between the two of us, right? So I didn't think much of it because nowadays this kid's autistic. This kid, got fucking beat up by the mailman. I don't fucking know, but them not talking to me, like whatever. But when they're done with their set, they go and talk to this other guy that's at a leg press machine. Now, the guy in a leg press machine, I'd seen before. I'd seen him in the gym a couple times. He's a guy that's about 180 pounds. He should probably weigh 140, 150. But his piss probably glows in the dark, like whatever. Do whatever you want to do. But this is who he is. And huge shoulders, impressive arms. You could tell his upper body, is in great shape. But you look at his legs and it's like, yeah, this guy looks like he's 3 months out of a fucking wheelchair. He looks like a lawn dart. Those people that they wear the long socks with the long shorts, right? And but I already know the type. He's I already know like this guy. I've seen him before, and I recognize the type of person he is. I know how men act. Well, these two kids go to this guy and they mention to him something. It's out of earshot of where I am, and I see him mouth to them who, and they look and they point at me. Now, I didn't know that these kids knew who this guy was. I had no idea. He looked like a Puerto Rican dude, right? They looked like 2 white boys. And they weren't interacting prior to that. So me, not wanting to step on the guy's toes, I preemptively said, hey guys, I didn't know you were working out with him. And absolutely honestly was going to get into, he knows what he's doing. Like, listen to him. If I just thought you guys were by yourselves, or just giving some, I was trying to not step on the dude's toes because I apparently he was training them. But before I get the opportunity, I do say, oh, I didn't know you guys were with him. At that point, the guy walks over to me. And he goes, why would anybody listen to you Look at me and look at you. You don't even have abs. You're morbidly obese. He tells me. So it's like, holy shit. So when this happens, I was dumbfounded. Like, this was the only thing this guy possibly could have said that put me in shock, because I was in shock. And the only thing I could come up with at the moment, because I was on my heels, mentally, was, what the fuck did you just say? And he goes, I mean, come on, look at you. You look like you're ready to have a heart attack. You don't even know what you're doing. Look at my look at my body and look at your body. And so admittedly, at this point, and I already got thrown out of the gym, so it's not like, I'm fucking worried about anything. I look at him and I go, there's a lot of cameras in here. And, at this point in my life, I have a lot to lose. But you realize that, when when a man says that to another man, usually has the shit slapped out of him, right? So now I know I'm not going to put my hands on this guy, right? You can't put your hands on people. It's certainly not for this reason, right? If there's a line for that, it's not. It would feel good. Don't get me wrong, but it's just, I mean, come on, you got too much. I got too much to lose, right? And it's like, what are we fighting for? I know I can beat him up. It's not the point. But the one thing I could probably do better than fighting is talking shit, right? So this guy gets the A game. So he tells me, well, he says, and I'll give you a couple of back and forths. I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but he goes, oh, please, I wouldn't even put my hands on you. If I fucking grabbed you, you'd probably have a fucking heart attack. So I told him, I said, listen, if you want to meet somewhere where there aren't any cameras and handle this like two men, I promise you I won't punch you. I'll slap you over and over again until you cry, like every one of your stepfathers did to you when you were a child. At this point now, I have everybody crying that's watching this argument that's two of us, and he's losing his shit. He tells me at one point, well, you look at you, like you probably only make $40,000 a year. I make six figures. You don't even know what it's like to make six figures. To which I reply, what the fuck are you talking about? Who the fuck are you doing? Money? I'm like, I got a couple of dollars on me. What do you got, $100,000 on you? Like, I might have a couple of hundred. Like, so everyone's fucking hysterically laughing at this guy. He's getting more and more pissed. But I already know, like, he tried to rise up in the beginning, puff up, and I called his bluff. And now we both know what it is. So at one point I could see, he's getting so incensed, so mad that he like looks to move forward. And I go, no, don't move forward, because then we'll have to start fighting. And you don't want to do that. You want to act tough. You want to look tough. But you're not tough. I think you know what'll happen. And I'm just making sure that I'm shaming him. The two kids he's with at some point, one of them comes up to me and goes, hey, why don't you just mind your business? Nobody was talking to you. Go over and go to your squat rack. And so not only is this kid a teenager, but he's a teenager from like the Poconos. Like, it's like this kid has no hood in him whatsoever, right? I look at him and I go, how old are you? And he goes, 16. I said, is this how your parents raise you? To fucking be disrespectful to fucking to grown men that you don't even know? Is this how your mother and father raised you to be? It's like, go the fuck over there and mind your business. This has nothing to do with you. He's like, okay. And he went over. So the employees come over, and this is Sunday afternoon. So it's not exactly like the A team that's working in the gym, right? And it's a guy and a girl. They hear the commotion. They come over, and they're like, hey, well, what's going on? And I'm like, listen, this crazy motherfucker just starts talking shit to me. And I was trying to help these kids, but I'm here to work out, and I'm fine. If he's good, I'm good. I'm pretty much at that point trying to recruit this guy to understand what's happening. It's like, asshole, we're not fighting. We're sitting here insulting each other. And now the employees are here. And we'll get thrown out if we can continue to act like this. So I'm at the point where I'm like, I'm good if he's good. I'm just here to work out and whatever. He's, oh, this guy's, he says this is the last thing. He goes, oh, this guy's some sort of homo. He told me to meet him someplace. I don't know what he wants to do with me. I don't know. And I'm looking at him like really that's what you're gonna go with. So one of the employees says, I'm gonna go call the manager on the phone, I guess. The other guy goes, well, I'm gonna stay here until she calls. So the guy I'm arguing with and I, we both go to have like fake sets, right? Because now I'm pretending I'm gonna squat again. He's pretending he's gonna use a leg press again. And it's like, I don't even know what the fuck's happening, but I'm just trying to not get thrown out because I already know the meta issues I have at this point. I'm not worried about this dude. The guy finishes a set while the employee's like sitting on the windowsill between us, like a fucking like we're in kindergarten or something. And when he gets up, he pulls his shirt up. And he's fucking ripped, right? He pulls up his shirt and he goes, oh yeah, let me see you pull up your shirt. To which point I look at the employee and I go, come on, little gay, no? He's calling me gay. That's a little fucking gay. The employee starts laughing. So me, the employee, and a couple other people laughing at this guy. He just can't win. And again, ultimately I get thrown out of the gym. So they tell us we have to leave that day. I already know, like, fuck. I know I'm not going to get called to ask what happened by the manager or something. I just get an email the next morning that your membership's been revoked. It's like a bunch of my friends at the gym, even my wife is like, like, what the fuck is wrong with them? How could, and it's like, listen, I'm a guy that argued with another guy in the gym. There's an owner of the gym who has never been in the gym, who has a policy. Like two guys arguing, yeah. What do we pay? $30 each a month? Like that's $60 a month to get them out. Like just like I understand because I am not let down by the expectations of this alliance. I understand this is a corporate commercial gym. I don't expect any of the people that work there that I'm buddies with to risk their jobs, to defend me. Like I know what it is, right? But ultimately, I have the talk with I tell my kids what happened and everything. And I tell them, I said, I didn't handle that right. Now, obviously, they want to hear a story about daddy beating the shit out of this asshole at the gym. 10, 15 years ago, that would have been the story. Those of you that know me know goddamn well that would have been the story. But I told them, I said, I handled that completely incorrectly. And I said, the reason I handled it incorrectly is because the guy got the first beat on me. When he insulted me in our first interaction, I was off. Admittedly, I hadn't contemplated that was a possibility. So I immediately went on the defensive and I started talking shit back. So I told my boys, if I had the opportunity to do that again, when he first insulted me, I would have went up to him. I would have lowered my voice and I would have said, why are you insulting me, man? Like, I didn't say anything bad about you. I didn't know these kids were getting trained by you. Like, man, I've seen you in the gym a couple times. I thought we were cool. Like, I don't have a problem with you. I didn't mean anything by that. I don't understand why you're insulting me. I would have done that. And if anything, number one, I wouldn't have got thrown out. And I might even recruited this guy to have felt so guilty that he might have felt indebted to me in some way. But I wouldn't have given him any alpha energy. Right? Because he's the hammer. I showed up as a bigger hammer. I didn't have to show up that way. And ultimately, what would I have gotten? I would have been able to maintain my gym membership, and I might have recruited this guy into feeling some sort of debted alliance to me because of how he went big, and I didn't meet him with any big energy as a result. In Sayat Kali, they had the framework of feeding, right? And I've spoke about it with Tuan Tom before on podcasts, and it's definitely something you guys should look up, the idea of being a feeder. And Pomana Tuhan, the founder of the system, had a whole structure of feeding at different levels. And it was something that I didn't understand in all the applications when I was first exposed to the system. But as you go on, you contemplate these things, you start to realize, okay, this is what he was talking about. And in that instance, I could have been feeding at a much higher level. and I didn't. But that's the experience, right? So I'll leave you on with that. Um, I promised to tell this story last week and I completely forgot, but I'm glad I was to share. Now I'll be honest, there's some things in the story I didn't share here because it's not appropriate. But that is the framework of what happened, and I figured you guys would get a kick out of it. But I appreciate you guys. I thank you for joining, and MasterChim.com. If you guys have not signed up to my email list, please do that. I send one every day. It's free, quote of the day, all that good stuff. Like this, share it if you appreciate it. Tell your friends about it. I'm trying to grow this weekly show. If it becomes more and more popular, I'll invest in doing a couple more during the week. But I am having a good time doing this. All right, guys. I appreciate you. I'll see you guys next week. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.